It's Lord Meyer.
Everybody, take a seat and hear the wonderful revelations of Lord Meyer all the way from Wisconsin.
I'll say one thing before I start. I would prefer if everyone can keep questions till the end. I'm the kind of presenter, I get really thrown off if I get interrupted in between. So unless it's like a really brief clarification that you need in the moment, otherwise I would prefer questions at the end, please. So I am talking about relationships today, and I'm going to start out with a controversial Reardon quote. So this is from the Playboy interview. She said, "If people place such things as friendship and family ties above their own productive work, yes, then they are immoral. Friendship, family life, and human relationships are not primary in a man's life. A man who places others first above his own creative work is an emotional parasite." So you can see how something like this could be taken out of context, misunderstood by most mainstream culture, and really fuel the kind of myth and stereotype of objectivists as loners who have no ties to other people, no room for coordination and cooperation, and really just this harsh kind of tone. So then, how can I be talking about relationships as important and integral to a flourishing life for objectivists? So I'll return to this controversy and hope to explain the source of it later. But today I'm talking about how and why to broaden and deepen your relationships. And I'm mostly going to be talking about friendships, but the principles apply to family, colleagues, romantic partners, all other kinds of relationships as well. And I'm actually going to start with the motivation, why this should be an important topic in your life, and then move on to practical implementation, how to do it better. So first, why? Why are friendships and relationships important, contrary to this stereotype of objectivists as loners? One just really practical benefit of having good friends and relationships in your life is that they can be a source of processing and learning. So processing information and emotions, and this is more important for some people than others. I'm definitely an external processor. I help to understand myself in conversation with other people. That's how I work through things and deal with issues in my life, and how I learn is often socially. And this is different degrees for different people, but everyone has it somewhat, or it can just be a different source and provide variety. And for learning, we have a lot of ways we can teach ourselves. We have books, the internet, you can be an autodidact. But learning socially is also important too, and having friends and relationships that you can discuss ideas with and be exposed to new ideas that you might not have found on your own as well. So a Reardon quote from Atlas to support this. "When I disagree with a rational man, I let reality be our final arbiter. If I am right, he will learn. If I am wrong, I will. One of us will win, but both will profit." So that shows here the mutual beneficial nature of social learning and social relationships. Another really basic function of relationships and friendships is they should be a source of pleasure in your life. They should be fun. And Reardon agrees with this as well, a quote from Virtue of Selfishness. "Love, friendship, respect, admiration are the emotional response of one man to the virtues of another. The spiritual payment given in exchange for the personal, selfish pleasure which one man derives from the virtues of another man's character." And furthermore, from Anthem, "I shall choose friends among men, but neither slaves nor masters. And I shall choose only such as please me. And them I shall love and respect, but neither command nor obey. And we shall join our hands when we wish, or walk alone when we so desire. So again, the mutual beneficial nature, voluntary nature, but deriving pleasure from it. Another important purpose of friendships and relationships is a source of inspiration in the benevolent universe premise. So it can be greatly beneficial to have heroes to look up to in the culture. And this can be, famous people, Steve Jobs, Michael Phelps, Mark Pellegrino, anyone who's accomplishing things you can admire. But if you have concrete examples in your own life, people you know personally who are achieving things, being successful, that you can look up to, that makes it even more personal and can reinforce the idea that success is possible, you can pursue your values, and give you the inspiration that you might need to when you're low on spiritual fuel yourself. So my very favorite quote from the Fountainhead, don't work for my happiness, my brothers. Show me yours. Show me that it is possible. Show me your achievement. And the knowledge will give me courage for mine. Another important purpose of friendships and relationships is there can be a source of support. And this can take the form of material support sometimes, but I mean more broadly emotional support and spiritual support. When you're going through a tough time, when you have negative emotions that you're experiencing, when you're feeling down about yourself or your circumstances, friends can be there to help buoy you in those times. And even people who are very strong and confident and accomplished need support sometimes. So even Reardon, quote from Atlas, he felt a desolate loneliness of a kind he had never known before. He thought that Gwen Ives and Mr. Ward could look to him for hope, for relief, or renewal of courage. To whom could he look for it? He too needed it for once. He wished he had a friend who could be permitted to see him suffer without pretense or protection, on whom he could lean for a moment, just to say, I'm very tired, and find a moment's rest. Whew, getting choked up by myself here. I have gone through this need of friendship more acutely in the past year than I have other times in my life. So I'm very grateful that I've built this network of broad and deep relationships that I could rely on when I needed this kind of relief. Another form that this support can take is in a friendship mirror. So this is my very good friend Haley. Many of you might know her. And she is excellent at being a mirror for me. And what I mean by that is if I'm not feeling the most confident in myself, or I need inspiration, I'm feeling insecure, I made a mistake, and I need to see a way forward, she helps remind me and reflect back all of my positive attributes. You might have made a mistake this time, but look at all these other times where you excelled or you did the right thing, and you know you made a mistake and you can move forward in this way, and kind of reminding you of the good within yourself when you are having trouble seeing it yourself. So if there's all these important benefits of friendship and other relationships, how can there be this controversy of why they're important within objectivism? Let's return to that Playboy interview quote, and I'll read it with a little different emphasis. If people place such things as friendship and family ties above their own productive work, then yes, they are immoral. Friendship, family life, and human relationships are not primary in a man's life. A man who places others first above his own creative work is an emotional parasite. So you'll see I was really emphasizing that time all the primary kind of language. So this is saying that your own productive work in yourself has to be primary, but that's not saying that friendship and family ties and other human relationships are not important for a successful, flourishing, happy life. It's just saying they're not primary. But if they are properly integrated into your hierarchy of values, they can still be a great source of all the benefits I was just discussing. So I think it's a mistake when people interpret this to mean that friendship is unimportant just because it's not primary. And you also have to have a self before you can have good relationships. So we all know this quote from Fountainhead: to say I love you, you must be first able to say the I. And this is from romantic relationships in context, but I think it applies to all others as well. You can't be a good friend if you don't have a self to reflect, if you don't have your own productive and creative work to contribute to the relationship. So now people might be wondering, okay, who should I be friends with? What kind of relationships should I include in my life? And the basis for this is that there should be some kind of rational process for selecting friends. Now, my daughter Felix is 4. She's here in the bird shirt dress. She does not have a rational basis for friendships yet. If we are out on the playground and she wants to make a friend to play with, her criteria are pretty much like about my size, probably a girl, and these days usually blonde. Like, that's how she chooses her friends. And for her purposes right now, that's okay. They tend to get along and they like doing the same things because they're the same size and they're at the playground and whatever. But as adults, we might need some more rational and stringent criteria than that. And the most important of these, I think, is shared values. And this can range anything from creative acumen, thirst for knowledge, passion for life. The things that are important to you that you want to be able to respect and admire in your friends and the people with whom you have relationships. And these can vary greatly by people in terms of which of your values are most important to you to have with your friends. So, an example, well, I'll say before, Howard Rourke, the character, is often used as an example of a Rand character who is a loner and has no friends. But that's really not true if you're reading the book carefully whatsoever. So in an essay from Essays on the Fountainhead by Dina Shine, says at first glance, Rourke's friends appear to have nothing in common. They range from a member of high society, Austin Heller, to a plain workman, Mike Donegan, from one of the wealthiest men in America, Gail Wyman, to one of the poorest, Stephen Mallory. What unites all these men is their professional competence and independent judgment. This is what attracts Rourke to them. He seeks out a romantic partner and friends for his own enjoyment rather than for show. So for Rourke, some of the things he most looks for in friends is professional competence and independent judgment, because those are very important to him and key parts of his own character as well. So shared values are necessary for friendships, but not sufficient. You also need to have some degree of common interest. And I know some objectivists, especially newer ones, maybe feel like they have to be friends with every objectivist because we have all these shared values, so we have to be friends, right? No, like some people's style you're just not going to mesh with. And if you don't like doing the same thing, if you're the kind of person who wants to stay in and have a quiet discussion with a small group of people about an essay in depth, you're going to want different friends than if you're the kind of person who wants to go out and dance and listen to music and be more active. Different friendship styles and different activities, and that's okay. So one way to find people with common interests that I really am a proponent of is Meetup. It's a website and app. I'm moving a little into the hows here, but it's a website and app for finding people based on common interests. And there's groups out there on everything. I looked some up in Detroit for you. There's the Metro Detroit Tesla Owners and Enthusiasts. There's Dance Meditation Technique. There's Metro Detroit Women in Machine Learning and Data Science. There's Intellectual Property Law Detroit. There's Bisexual Men and Women. So, and this is just a very small handful of ones that I found on the first page of Meetup. And so you can find people with common interests that whatever you want to do. And if there's not a group out there in your area for stuff you want to do, it's very easy to make one and find the kind of people that you're looking for. So I've talked so far about shared values and common interests, but it's also important to have a degree of diversity among your friends as well. You don't want people who are only the same exact values and interests as you, partially because that would really limit your supply of potential relationships, and cutting yourself off from potential sources of pleasure and the other benefits that you could gain from relationships. And it's important to expose yourself to new things too, partially for that learning and processing benefit that I was talking about, and also to kind of push out of your comfort zone. If you're usually the same kind of person, it's good to have some people who are more going out people in your life, so occasionally you can do that, or vice versa, or try new activities that you might not have on your own, but might discover new passions. So don't be too stringent on only trying to find people who fit a preconceived exact profile of what you think your friends should be like. And another mistake I sometimes see objectivists make is thinking that they can only be friends with objectivists, and because they have to share all of these values. But again, that limits your supply, especially depending on where you might live. If there's not as many objectivists around you, and really cuts you off from people who can still be valuable in your life and provide different benefits for you. So I'm fortunate to have a diverse group of friends. I have people I do karaoke with, I have people I do choir with, I have people in a mom's club, I have people who are homeschooling parents. Of course, I have a bunch of objectivist friends, and I get different benefits and pleasure and activity and learning from each of these different groups. So sometimes people wonder, how many friends do you need? The answer is 9. I wish it were something as simple as that, right? But of course there's not a cut and dry answer to this. It depends on your own personality, your own needs. A big factor is extroversion and introversion. I am vampirically extroverted myself. I need as many people around me as possible to suck up all your people energy and give it to me. Whereas my husband is much more introverted. He only needs a small handful of close friends, a few more acquaintances, that's it. Like, he's good. So your friendship needs will vary. And the only good way to really know this is introspection about yourself. If you're feeling lonely, time to find some new friends. If you have friends for different needs in your life, if you feel like you're taking too much from your network from any given person, you might need to try and spread it out among more. Now, how do we go about making more and better friends? The basis of this is from an Emerson quote: "The only way to have a friend is to be one." And this idea underlies all the rest of the tips I'm going to be giving today. Basically, anything you would want a friend to be or do for you is the kind of things you should be being and doing for your friends. And it creates a virtuous cycle of positive feedback where if you're doing these good behaviors, the other people in your network will reciprocate, or you'll find the other people who are doing so. So we talked one of the main benefits of friendship is receiving support. So a good way to have more and better friends is to provide support for people in your life that you care about. And again, this should not be done altruistically, self-sacrificially. It should be done in accordance with your own values. Because if someone is important to you, then supporting them should be something important to you because you want to see them happy, you want to see them flourishing. So a quote from the Virtue of Selfishness, the practical implementation of friendship, affection, and love consists of incorporating the welfare, the rational welfare, of the person involved into one's own hierarchy of values, then acting accordingly. But this is a reward which men have to earn by means of their virtues, and which one cannot grant to mere acquaintances or strangers. So again, for the people you care about, you should be wanting to help them in ways and to a degree that's appropriate to your own life. And from the same essay, she says, the virtue involved in helping those one loves is not selflessness or sacrifice, but integrity. So it's an expression of your own integrity to support the people you care about. Another method that I'm very fond of is giving compliments to people and expressing your gratitude. And this works both for making new connections with people, forming new relationships, and deepening the relationships that you already have. And important things to keep in mind about compliments is they should be sincere. If you're not genuine about it, it doesn't really do anything for a connection. It feels formulaic and rote. So it should be specific and earned as well. So about something that you actually appreciate or admire about someone else. And if it's just at like a networking event or mingling with people at a party, it can be more basic surface level things like, oh, your shirt is really interesting, where did you get it from? Or, wow, I really like the way you styled your hair. You know, more surface level stuff, but as you get to know people more, the compliments can be about deeper things as well. It's like, Amy, I really appreciate how passionate you are about everything from bunnies to Halloween to benevolence. And Chris, I really appreciate your boisterous and uninhibited laughter. And Ashley, I love how you are relentless in the pursuit of your values in the face of adversity. So anything that you are feeling positive thoughts about people, you shouldn't let them go unexpressed. And that's something I'm always working to do better at myself. But just thinking nice things about people without taking that next step of letting them know about it doesn't really do anyone any good. And the same goes with gratitude too. If you're thankful for someone for doing something, let them know. And not only does it make them feel good, it kind of reinforces it for next time, perpetuates the behavior that you want to see. And doing so is an act of justice. So a quote from Atlas, to withhold your contempt from men's vices is an act of moral counterfeiting, and to withhold your admiration from their virtues is an act of moral embezzlement. So another method of improving the quality and quantity of your relationships is initiating. And this applies to both initiating discussions and conversations and plans to actually do things with people. And I have a friend from high school who was once, lamenting, I haven't been invited out in so long. No one asked me to their parties or whatever. When was the last time you invited anyone to the movies? Or when was the last time you had people over to hang out? Oh. So again, this is a be a friend to have a friend kind of idea. If you want to be doing things with people, sometimes you should plan that. Or if you want to be having more conversations with people, sometimes you have to open up the door. And this comes a lot more naturally for some people than others. I am a born scheduler and planner. I love it. I'm really good at it. Some people, it's more out of your comfort zone. But I think everyone should, at least occasionally, be the one to initiate contact. And if nothing else, express your gratitude and appreciation for the people in your life who are the planners, who do strike up conversations, so that they know you appreciate being included, and keep you on the list, And it can be even simple things that you're already doing. If you have to go to the mall to buy some new jeans, invite a girlfriend along and you can hang out and chat at that time, make it less painful maybe. I think a lot of us were better at this in college. I know, going to the grocery store was an event. Hey, pile everyone in the car. We're heading to Target. Woo! So, initiating plans doesn't have to be a big, complicated, throwing a party for 40 people affair. It can be just something simple to keep connected with your friends. Another important thing is to ask better questions. So if you saw my talk last year, I was bemoaning a little bit kind of small talk, how are you? And you're going to get formulaic answers. It's either going to be I'm so busy, or I'm fine. And that doesn't really provide much basis for further connection and any progress in your relationship. But this also works both for initial connections at networking, at a party, at a conference, and for improving the relationships that you already have. You don't always just want a report of what they did today. That's not getting at real issues. So asking things like, what's the best book you've read this year? Or tell me about a vacation that you're looking forward to later on. People like talking about things that they're passionate about, that they're interested in, that they're excited for. And that tells you a lot more about the person, gives you something specific to hold on to, invites reciprocation about your own life and things that you might want to chat about. Instead of, what do you do, meaning for work or professionally. That's, you'll get the answer and then that's it. But something like, tell me about a project you're doing at work that you're excited about. Again, invites much more in-depth conversation and tells you more about the person. So along those lines, if you want people to be open and honest with you, that's something you have to model first. You have to be the one to start being vulnerable. If someone else asks you, how are you, and you're having a really crappy day, don't just say I'm fine if that's not true. If it's an appropriate context where you can and should be making a deeper conversation, then say the real answer. I'm feeling pretty down today because of an issue with my family. And then you can talk about that. Or whatever the case may be, just being more open, more honest yourself, and that invites other people to do the same. They know that you're kind of a safe person to reciprocate and get to deeper levels rather than just surface chit-chat. So sometimes in relationships, things don't always go smoothly. And if someone's important to you and you want to have them in your life, it's important to be able to resolve conflicts well. And this could be the topic of a whole talk all on its own, so I can't get too much into the details. But just knowing how to resolve conflicts effectively is an important way to maintain your relationships. And I think the very basic answer for this is honesty. That's what it comes down to. More on that in Q&A, maybe? And I think it's just as important to cut out toxic and bad relationships as it is to acquire and maintain good relationships. If someone is more of a drain on your resources and time and emotional reserves than the benefits that you're getting out of that relationship, then it's not worth it to you anymore. And they're taking away the emotion and energy that you could be investing in relationships that would be more fruitful for you. So some people have a hard time letting go of people from their life, sometimes out of a sense of duty or loyalty to if you maybe previously had a good relationship with a person. But it's important to be able to let people out of your life if they're no longer a net positive for you anymore. So, when properly integrated into your hierarchy of values, friendships and other relationships are a source of learning, pleasure, inspiration, and support. Friends should be chosen based on shared values and common interests according to your own needs. Tend to your relationships by being the kind of friend you want to have. Connect with people through compliments, deep questions, and mutual vulnerability. Let go of people not worthy of your time, but make plans with and work through issues with people who are. All right.
All right, thanks. They gave me all the feels, so thank you. You know, the very first iron quote that you put up on there about you're a moral parasite if you put other people first before your productive career, what your interests are. You know, it's funny because I did have, when I was a teenager, I did have the same reaction, but thankfully by that time I was, at the time when I was 15, a year before I read Ayn Rand, I was in a really bad toxic relationship with a punk rocker boyfriend who was, he was a real abuser, and thankfully I ran into some... So I was lucky enough to get hooked up with a counselor who gave me the book. It was called Men Who Hate Women and the Women Who Love Them. And I learned about codependency and enablers and abusers and all that cycle. That is a perfect quote to describe that kind of toxic relationship, that kind of being an enabler or somebody who is just constantly focused on other people and ignoring their own lives. So anyway, I just thought I'd throw that out there. It's a good reminder of that.
Good. Okay.
So that was a great talk. I think one of the reasons why this quote seems controversial to people is the definition of the word productive. My office mate actually found out recently that I'm an Iron Man. I don't think to have a child with her no lot. And she was like, the one thing I can't get is you can't spend your entire life being productive. I was like, what? I mean, like, so she has two hobbies. She likes to knit a lot, and she does it a lot, right? And she also likes to garden. And I was like, those are productive activities unless you take the needle, hold it in your hand, and don't do anything.
Right.
Or you go to a garden store and just stand and don't plant anything, or take the seeds and just throw them away.
Right.
You read about what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, so you're being productive. And that allows you to have these conversations with your gardening friends, your knitting friends, and with me. So that was one thing. The other thing is in Ayn Rand Questions and Answers, I forget the name of the book, multiple people describe how she goes on 6-7 hour dinners often.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, it's multiple hour-long dinners, right?
Right. Yeah, so I guess I should repeat, as a good speaker does, the previous question. So Amy was saying how this quote reminded her about codependent relationships and how to break from that this is saying that those are not a model. And Kate was saying part of the controversy here is misunderstandings of what productivity means. Some people who are not objectivists, not familiar with the way we use these words, only associate productivity with like business exclusively, or your paid work, and not productivity and pursuing all the values of your life. And then also that Ayn Rand herself had a lot of very deep and flourishing relationships and friendships, and she did place value on that herself. So yeah.
I was just going to say, I was thinking, a lot of people think of productivity or productiveness as a duty.
Right.
It's outside the realm of choice, and it's not like what hobbies are. Yeah.
Yeah, so further understanding of productivity is not duty, but can be hobbies, and your own value pursuits is really the base of it. Okay.
It seems like intentionality is like really important kind of in terms of like a theme running through a lot of what you're doing in terms of just being intentional about your friendships and your relationships. And I was just wondering if there's a way like that you found to, like, if you have kind of this network of friendships, like, do you have any specific kind of way of like reaching out at particular times, or just making sure that you're kind of maintaining connections and friendships? I know you mentioned it's a lot more natural to you, but like for me, it was not natural at all. Like, I feel like I'm doing a good job lately. But like in general, it's just kind of like I find that when I feel like I most need a friendship, I was finding like a number of years ago that there was just, I would realize I haven't reached out to people, when things are just going along. I'm just doing my thing. And so in these moments when I kind of felt like it would be nice to reach out, it felt like there was so much context to build in. So is there anything that you do specifically to kind of like stay connected more regularly with certain people, or does it just tend to happen more organically?
Yeah, so the question was about intentionality and how you can make sure you're maintaining relationships when everything is kind of fine, so that they're there when you need them more. So yeah, I think this is a skill that has to be developed. For me now, it feels more natural because I've consciously worked at it for a long time. When I was in high school, for example, I've always been very extroverted, but I used to be very awkward and shy. So like I knew I wanted all these connections and people in my life, and I knew it was important to me, but I didn't really know how. So I decided I was going to think systematically about it and make it something that I pursued intellectually, of how to do friends, basically, because I wanted it so badly. So I think specifically with keeping in touch with people, if I see someone on Facebook, who's a long distance friend, so that's where I would encounter them, and I get reminded of, oh yeah, I really like that person, we haven't chatted in a long time, I'll just send a direct message, and try and reestablish connection that way. Or, if you run into someone at the grocery store and you're like, oh man, we used to hang out all the time and they were so cool and we've lost touch, follow up on that. Any kind of, impulses that you have in that direction, make good on. Again, it's kind of like the unexpressed compliments and gratitude, unexpressed intention for connection without following through. So I think just deciding to take that leap into action when you have the thought. I don't think it's necessary to have any kind of set schedule or regimen as far as reaching out, but maybe if you're especially struggling with this area, setting up a schedule for yourself of, every week I'm going to send a text to 3 people that I care about and just kind of check in on their life. And set a specific goal like that for yourself, and then it might become to feel more natural. Or one specific method of follow-up that I included in an earlier version of this talk and cut for time is to follow up on important dates with people in your life. So if someone mentions to me that their dad is having surgery next Sunday, I put in my calendar Haley's dad's surgery on Sunday. So then on that day, I'll text her and say, hey, thinking about you, hope it all goes well. So people really like feeling recognized and seen in that way. So just keeping track of important dates and events in your friends' lives is another good way to maintain connection.
Thank you so much for making this a productive hour. And I think I want to go to the question of productive.
Sure.
She talks about relationships and families, and I think those require work.
For sure.
A good friend of mine many, many years ago said to me that a friend is like a garden, they both need tending. A good relationship needs tending. A good romantic relationship or marriage or family needs tending. So all of that is work.
Right.
And similarly, when it isn't working, the toxicity. So with the same metaphor of the garden,
Pull the weeds.
right, when you get up and there's more weeds than fruit,
Right.
it's time to trim or move on. So
Right.
just want to make that observation.
Yeah, so the point Renata was saying was again about productivity. Relationships require work as well. The metaphor of the garden, tending to both the garden and your relationships and pulling weeds, the toxic people. Any further questions?
I have an hour's worth, but we'll take that later.
Deal.
I would just like to compliment you on the presentation.
Thank you.
Which between the how and the who and the how and the why, I think covered all the bases and express my gratitude to you for speaking to us.
Thank you, Robert. Well, I will say any measure of this is an example of the benefit of friends as well. I did a preview talk for 3 different sets of my friends, and they all gave good feedback for me. So I definitely drew benefits from having these relationships that I could draw on to practice on, so I could be better for y'all. So.
Thank you.